Hey everybody, welcome to Hear Us Out. I am Patrick.
And I'm Paul. How's it going?
Not too bad, my friend. Tonight, or if you're in the other side of the world, this afternoon, since I know some of our viewers have commented on the time zone difference, today we are talking about books transitioning to movies and essentially why some plot points or some elements don't quite make it, what the reasons for that might be, and sometimes what the implications of that are. So, Paul, this was something that came to you from a conversation with one of our fine viewers about
Yeah,
the Foundation series.
yeah. So Pop Culture 33, which is, if you haven't checked his videos out, go over and check them out. He's doing great. Movie reviews and top 10 movies. I don't know if he has another video out yet, but
I think it might be later this week.
so. But check him out. Yeah, I had a conversation with Pop Culture 33 essentially about the Foundation, which is on Apple TV. It just released its first two episodes, kind of thing. It's a Asimov storyline, I'm so happy that it got turned into a TV show. But there's elements of it that are very hard to get across and are very important to the storyline. And we had a conversation. I was just worried because there's also some things in Dune that might be a little bit difficult to come across. So
Yeah.
as high sci-fi, I guess, has, and this kind of sparked off this idea of kind of like where do plots from the source material get mangled, changed, altered, or removed, kind of comes into us and stuff like that. So like changing stuff around, everything.
That was my phone.
So
Excuse me. The idea of story concepts, plot lines, plot points, any of the, particularly in high sci-fi, and you don't kind of get bigger in a lot of ways than Isaac Asimov's Foundation. That series,
true.
it's pretty epic. I don't have Apple TV, but I'm thinking about it now. After all the times I wound it up about being the kind of runt child in the streaming pile for me. Although that's still reserved for Peacock. Love you, Peacock. Although we can't actually get that here, so we shouldn't be so mean. I'm really excited about the idea of Foundation. But the conversation, and before we move on to Dune, let's just kind of call this out. The big difference between something like if they were making a movie for Apple TV about Foundation, I would be like, no way. But it's a TV series. So it's a question of, will they give themselves multiple series to cover the whole story? What are they going to cut out? What are they not going to cut out? And, to give people an idea of what this is based on, Paul, there's a very long running, it covers a great span of time. That's the thing you have to understand about the Foundation series.
Yeah.
How many thousands or tens of thousands of years are we talking here, really? We're talking tens of thousands of years that this story is set over. Obviously, it jumps through for anybody who's worried about reading a book that is 1 billion pages long.
The book is set. The trilogy is set for quite advanced time, but it's essentially set through 1,000 years of essentially the dark ages of a galaxy spanning empire, kind of thing. I'm not going to give you the whole kind of like gist,
Yeah.
but it jumps quite quickly through the kind of ages and stuff like that, because there's these set points that have to occur. But it's the string that holds us together is a concept called psychohistory. I'm not going to explain anything else about this.
Yeah, but it does sound like a
psychohistory-
punk rock band that I was in, like when I was 16. We're psychohistory and we don't care. Junk.
It does. It is a great punk band name. Like,
I'm sure it's
yeah,
dead. I hope
I definitely would say. But it's one of these things. It's one of these things that it's very easy to get through quite quickly, and then be able to kind of explain some of the nuances and some of the kind of elements of psychohistory within a book, because within 3 books as well, kind of thing. But within a TV series, it'll be a little bit difficult. Like, I have watched the first 2 episodes, and like they kind of gloss over it not gloss over it in the way that I would feel cheated, but in a way of kind of going as a fan of of knowing what that is. It's kind of just like, oh, because it's one of these things where if someone watches the series and then reads the book, it's going to be a little bit of a kind of like book versus TV series
Yeah.
likeness kind of thing. Whereas I don't know, the Foundation is a very good book series kind of thing. So,
Well,
but it's difficult to get through, kind
well,
of thing. So I understand why they've.
and that's the thing. You can't. Let's kick this one in the tires and see. Like realistically, you're talking 3 books becoming a TV series, so they can do multiple series. And don't forget, through the more successful, popular, more safe they come about what they're going to be able to write next, they may be able to layer back on more depth into what they mightn't be doing the book, all the concepts from the books chronologically. That's one of the great things about TV versus book, or film versus book. And actually, I'm going to use my favorite book of all time as the example, because Catch 22. Catch 22 is a book that I loved, and it's a book that a lot of people hate. And one of the things that's commonly said is there's so many characters and it's all out of sequence. Because it's a bit memento-y, because it'll be talking about a character and it'll jump back to that point in time when they were crucial to the main character, or they were relevant to our protagonist. The TV show George Clooney produced and was involved in didn't do that. It actually laid it all out chronologically. It tried to tell the story as a flowing story. Now, did that bother me? No, not at all. Because I was like, thank God they're not just making this as indigestible on screen as some people
Yeah.
find it in written word. I loved it in written word, and I wouldn't change a damn thing about it. But I was fine with them kind of going, we're cutting out these 2 or 3 or 4 are actually more like 15 characters. We're changing some of their behavior slightly to fit this narrative. They even added in some things that just plain weren't in the book for flair. But I think they captured the spirit in a lot of ways, which is all I could hope for. Because if they'd missed out the central tenant, and if nobody's ever heard of Catch 22, what's on screen now is the old book. There's a shot from the TV series. Essentially, it's about the madness of war and how people have to deal with that. But also the idea that if you're crazy enough to be there, and you're crazy, then you're not crazy. So you can't get out by saying I'm losing my mind. They're like, if you know you're losing your mind, then you're not. It's that sort of catch-22 that we all use today. Key thing to your point, Paul, they didn't. There were a few things I was like, "Ooh, are you really gonna do this justice?" And later on, as things progressed, they kind of did layer back in a little bit to go, okay, so you left some of that development for later. And you didn't do it up front when I would have expected it when these things were being introduced. So it could be the same for Foundation.
It could be like, but it is many stories have done that kind of thing. As in, they'll do an easier version of laying up the whole kind of story, because psychohistory isn't the most important. Like, it is the most important concept and kind of what everything's kind of wrapped around. But the story is about people and about how they react within certain situations across this kind of spanning thing.
Yeah.
So it's okay for a TV show to kind of do that, to ease people into it, because it's already slower than the book is, kind of. As in, like, we haven't in the book. You have the first couple of minutes, the first couple of like chapters are essentially quite quick, or quite there's, and then the next chapters are set like 100 years into the future. But which is what to your point is a lot of TV shows are a lot easier to do because they do have, like, one of the main points of getting things across and stuff like that is that books have more time. They have more time with you to explain things, to let you digest and grow with it and stuff like that. The second kind of medium on screen would be also, which goes TV shows. It's why Game of Thrones worked
Yeah.
so well up to the final chapters where it caught up with the source material,
Final
kind
episode.
of thing. Yeah, like it's, and this is where the things, because like even in Game of Thrones they cut out loads of different plots and stuff like that, so they changed them as well. And the reason is because you don't have enough time to kind of digest them, or they're kind of like they're kind of just interesting points for characters that you might like and stuff. Harry Potter is also full of plots that have been removed, changed, altered, characters combined, removed, kind of thing, just because either they didn't have enough time to go into them, or they're not overly relevant to the main story, kind of thing. But people love them because you've read the source material, and those are parts that you grew up with,
Well,
or kind of loved.
that's a perfect kind of segue from TV to movie, because I think, we started with Foundation. Maybe we'll work to Dune at the end, because that book ends what what was the inspiration for this, the conversation that spurred all this. And I think TV, we can talk about it in one direction because we don't know how long a TV series is going to go or how much room it's going to have. But movies, we know, unless you're signed up for a movie series like Harry Potter, where they're going to do a book at a time, if it's a single adaptation, let's face it, just books have more time than movies do. Movies are shorter and faster in any real sense than a book. Books can hang around on ideas, work with concepts, try and build rich backgrounds. Whereas in a movie, you want to show, you don't want to tell. And movies that have tried to copy books too closely, or their source material too closely, have not worked out too well, because you want to make sure you're working to your medium. We covered that in the whole "Shut Up Fanboys" episode, which we'll link somewhere. You don't want to do it the exact same way as another medium because it is different. You can't hang around. You don't want things slowing your plot down. Sometimes you have to cut out whole characters, and this is where the internet hates me. There is the Team Bombadil, the Team Not Tom Bombadil.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings was for a long time considered unadaptable properly. Peter Jackson and everyone else involved did a great job. They cut out lots of things, they changed lots of things, but one of the big things that stuck in a lot of people's throat was, where's Tom Bombadil? He's our magical, happy friend who runs around the forest and has a whole big section in the book, or books. He wouldn't have served any purpose in the film that Peter Jackson made. That's why it's good that he's not there. If it doesn't serve a purpose when you're getting that much in there, you have to make sure it's out of the way, because you can distract, slow down, or even just have people coming out of the theater going, and what was that interlude where they went into the diner and did nothing for 20 minutes and had a conversation and then go back on with the movie? Tom Bombadil can be that bad diner scene.
Yeah, like I agree. I agree the Tom Bombadil section within the books are probably more world building rather than story building, in the sense of kind of they give you a more mystical, they give you a little bit of sense of more magical mysticalness to the worlds and stuff. But yeah, it's definitely it's fat on a story. So,
and look, because I want to get away from Lord of the Rings as fast as I can before we lose all viewers. For anybody who's a big fan of good old Tom Bombadil, the character in the book, good for you. The movies were different. That's just why I'm glad, because it's one of those things that could have put people off if they tried to be too faithful. Whereas Lord of the Rings, the movies were so successful, they brought a lot of people into the fold, which I kind of enjoyed. But Paul, one of the other reasons that, just talking in generalities, one of the other reasons that things aren't kept in an adaptation is that movies, they have to move on with the times. There are things that if you wrote your book in 1921, you can write things at 1921 sensibilities, social sensibilities. If you're going to make a movie about that now, you have to very carefully consider whether or not you're going to be able to keep all the themes, concepts, or plot points, because some things will just not work. If you're doing a period recreation, you have a better chance. But if you're in any way updating the time that you're telling your story in, you may have to change, remove, or just completely cut entire plot lines, entire stories.
Yeah, like that's the other thing is there's some updatedness which can lead to problems um from source material to screen time kind of thing. And it's just it's a sad point kind of thing sometimes in a way, because it's like if you can't if you can't get over the kind of like this is a book adaptation or a comic source,
Yeah.
some kind of source material adaptation, you know where it comes from, and
Yeah.
you know that kind of way, because
Particularly
like
if
there's
it's told
some
in period. Like if it's told in period, if you set something in 1912, it may be
yeah.
distasteful to us right now, and to me very much, some of the sensibilities of the time, some of the social norms that are not normal now and shouldn't have been then, but they were. So I think you should be able to include them in your story if they still serve a purpose and if it's still relevant. But it's a challenge. I think it's a shame when it happens just out of fear, where people are worried how someone will react to the inclusion of a certain plot line. But I think it does. If you're updating, then you have to update lots of things.
Well, actually, pop culture brings up one of the ones that I was going to bring up. The Bourne series, the Bourne books are all set are essentially like 70s spy kind of espionage things, and like yeah, upgrading them to essentially our time to make them a little bit more kind of gruffer and more kind of like I guess to do with the kind of like scariness of being able to hide from the technology that certain like intelligence agents have, makes you such a more powerful like entity kind
Yeah.
of thing.
The mobile phone changed a lot of scripts. It really did.
Yeah,
If you started your
that's
development in 95 and your film didn't get made until 2005, you had some serious rewriting to do.
well, that's yeah. Well, one of the interesting things, I'm rewatching Angel, or I've been rewatching Angel, and there's a
Like
point
it.
where mobile phones becomes a large point in the show, because yeah, um, it's just one of those why can't anyone just call anybody kind of thing. But anyway,
Yeah, it was a
yeah,
tough
like
one for Star Trek too.
but yeah, no, it's yeah, it makes points in the kind of like even James Bond is another good example of that kind of thing. Like James Bonds were written back in like between what fifties
Yeah,
to
Fleming was
seventies kind of
around
things.
exactly. Yeah,
So like it's not one of those things that you can like if you want to keep the thing fresh and up to like fresh for current audiences and stuff like that, and keep that element of danger within your story and stuff. You have to sometimes update it,
but
kind
it's
of thing.
it's not always bad though, Paul. Because sometimes when you're transitioning from your source material, like a book to a movie, you can actually cut out some bad ideas that were in a book. You can improve on the original, or at the very least, pull out some real dud moments. And the example I'm going to use is all over the internet. And I honestly, because I didn't read it before ever watching, I watched the old It and then the new movies, the two movies. First one far superior to the second, just in case you're wondering which chapter to watch. It wouldn't make any sense if you didn't watch chapter one. It. Stephen King, apparently in the book, and I don't know if you've read it, but there is a
Yeah, I have,
point
yeah.
that was pointed out to me where the kids have an orgy. Now, it's not extreme prudishness on my part. It's what the hell, Stephen King. Don't get me wrong. I know a lot of his books where, how should we say, the pen was motivated by a lot of substance, and it wasn't just the substance of writing. It was a lot of substances being taken through various sniffing and possibly smoking, and who knows, injecting. Anyway,
Well,
Stephen
like
was on some gear, and he was coming up with some pretty intense stuff. But it made no sense to me when someone told me, "Oh yeah, there's a moment where all the kids decide, the best way to stay together is if they have an orgy." That's a bunch of 12-year-olds or 11-year-olds and 10-year-olds, whatever they were, Paul. It was a bad idea.
it's
I'm glad it didn't
it's
make it into the screen.
yeah, like it's. I think this is one of these plots that have been overly simplified. Now, I agree for the fact that it wasn't included in the movie. It's essentially a sign of maturity kind of thing, as in coming of age, as in which goes Pennywise hunts children because they are easier to scare and stuff like that, and that's the kind of thing. And the idea is that puberty and that kind of adulthood kind of thing makes him kind of go off you a little bit faster and stuff like that. And also, it's like this kind of like there's a whole reason behind this kind of thing.
And I have no doubt. I have no doubt.
But I do agree that in a book, especially in Stephen King's horror books and stuff like that, you can take that on board, and like, you know, kind of it is written in a time and stuff like that. And you know, it's you also tend to, like, within the book, you also tend to forget a lot of the time that the kids, because you are kids, like, as in, like, there's a lot of internal monologuing and thought process that shows, you know,
it wouldn't have translated to screen. But more than that, just using it as the background for an example. And actually, we can skip to the other example possibly that we talked about before of Watchmen. I really enjoyed the Watchmen movie. I know, we all know, look, endings change, all sorts of things change. But where it comes in with this is if you have a big scene or a thing, and I was going to say a big thing, if you have something that stands out to some people, they won't be able to actually get it over it, forget about it, move on with the rest of the movie. I think if they had kept that scene or that subplot or that part of the, you know, that plot point, people wouldn't have been able to get on with it and just concentrate on what the overall story was. It would have been the big thing. And why am I mentioning Watchmen? There are two types of people who've seen Watchmen. There are people who enjoyed it. Well, three, I guess. People who enjoyed it, people who didn't enjoy it, and then the people who just go, well, sure, it was all just really about the big blue glowing guy's Willie. His dong was there for everybody to see. And you're like, there was way more happening in that movie. If you couldn't see past that, then, you know, it's a whole other conversation, I guess. But sometimes you can have something that's so distracting to a decent portion of the audience that you want to leave it in the book and not take it into the movie.
Yeah, like, I think, like, going back to the It thing, it definitely would have become the moment of crisis kind of thing. So, like, it would have been one of those, it would have been those thorns in the side of the movie, in the kind of sense of going, oh, it's so controversial, and like, you know, no one should watch this. And also every censor, like, organization would definitely have, like, banned the movie. So, like,
it would have stolen focus too. It just, you know, even if it wasn't as kind of socially extreme as that, there's some things you want to be careful with. Now, don't get me wrong, I think people should be able to concentrate and enjoy a story even if there is something in it that catches their eye. But you got to make money back from your movies. You don't necessarily want to lose 30%, which, Paul, you can get away with more in a book. And this makes me think of something that you pointed out when we were first going to watch The Boys. You can get away with much more in a book, comic, graphic novel. Yeah. You can be much more brutal on a page than you can on a screen. I think.
No, I would definitely agree. There's a different kind of understanding between reader and source, or reader and page, than there is watcher and screen.
Yeah,
kind of thing. Now, so, like, Watchmen is a big, or sorry, The Boys is a big one, kind of thing, where it's there's a lot more sexual content in the comic book, in the source material, than there is in the series, and which is fine. It's, as I said, I'm not a fanboy who's just like, they've ruined the source material. But I said this in the other video. It's something that you cannot get away with on that level within screen time. So you have to remove it so that you can have your elements, or you have your show. So, like, you know, there's those kind of moments within a screenwriter's kind of cutting and changing and altering and stuff like that. There has to be a thought of kind of going, okay, what isn't story specifically needed that can remove and not have to have that fight with the censorship kind of thing, that whereas it doesn't bring any value, like overly value, that we can't show somewhere else within the series kind of thing. So that's a big screenwriter's kind of, like, dilemma.
You're right into a you're always trying to feed this story, and if it's going to detract from the story, that you have to worry about whether or not people will be able to digest it, as we were saying for the previous thing, or in the case of The Boys, you know, you're changing the genre almost that you're going to be in, because let's face it, when people see enough kind of hardcore brutal violence or anything even remotely like that on screen, it immediately recategorizes that movie or that show as this is, it's horror, it's violent, it's whatever it might be, even if the underlying story is still something different. So when you're doing your screenwriting, you have to consider what serves the story. If it's going to detract from the story, even by just bending it into a whole other genre, then you got to know, you got to be aware of that. You're not writing a book when you're writing a screenplay. You're quite literally writing it for the screen, so you have to be aware of that. And I think the funny thing for me on that point is genre has expectation. So to talk about adapting a book, let's say, and I'm going to actually use the example of Edge of Tomorrow. So Edge of Tomorrow was originally a written work. When that was written, it was sci-fi, I guess, is the right way to put it. But when it was being made, it was action sci-fi. And there's a subtle but important difference there. You can spend more time writing sci-fi and having your tempo go up and down. You can have, basically exposition breaks where you're going to explain more, delve more into a specific part of this. You're going to, really build a world. It's going to be very, very rich. If you're putting that on screen and you're doing it in the genre of action sci-fi, which is what it was trying to be sold as, you have to keep the pace up. There's no point in having action scene and then now we're back in a room doing exposition where we explain everything. I think Edge of Tomorrow did a great job getting its core sci-fi message out there. Again, show, not tell. It told enough, then demonstrated enough, which makes, it's a visual art form as well. The films that get that wrong, and there are films that very much do that in sci-fi, where they want to be, we're sci-fi. And you're like, you're probably actually more sci-fi horror in the way you're going to be portraying on screen, or you're more action sci-fi, or you're more kind of light sci-fi. Don't keep delving back in halfway through the movie when there's a bunch of people going, this is great, I really enjoy this, and then take a break to go, but what's really going on at a molecular level here is, you're like, this is going to lose viewers. It's going to lose their attention.
Well, this is my, I guess this is the crux, not the genre part, but what you just said there, which is like, the exposition parts that you will lose people, is one of the reasons why I was fearful for the Foundation and Psycho History, and also for some of Dune. But yeah, like genres. See, genres are weird because, yeah, the original source material for Edge of Tomorrow is live, kill, is die. Like, what is this? Live, kill, die, repeat, or something.
Live,
like
die,
that?
repeat.
Yeah, and it's a manga series kind of thing, but to adapt this for a wider audience, you need to kind of get rid of some of the nuances in the genre that it was originally. So, as you said, this is more action sci-fi. It doesn't give you a lot of kind of like exposition on why the time travel element works or not, kind of thing. And the manga doesn't do that either. But the thing with the manga is it has cultural specific elements to it that go through, that are very difficult to get across to a wider kind of audience. And I'm going to say wider Western audience as well, because you slam Tom Cruise in there and you're automatically going to get a wider Western audience kind of thing.
It's true. It is true.
So like, but the other reason I also want like that, like there's those alterations so that it's wider appeal. It also depends on the screenwriter or the person who wants to take this project on board. They could also put their own spin on it as well towards it. As in, you could make a Downton Abbey horror, kind of thing. If you want, if it was originally like, because I think Downton Abbey is originally books, or
I just assume so. I have no idea.
Yeah, but it's that kind of thing. As in, like, if there's a series of books, which is you can take and make it twisted and stuff like that. Which is good because it keeps some of the source material fresh. It gives us a new kind of look on it. You're so adjacent to the original source material that you can't really complain about it, kind of thing. It's just like, this is this director's adaptation kind of thing. So like changing genres or adding to genres and stuff like that on source materials is it can be a beneficial thing, but as you said, it also can have restrictions in the sense if you try to follow the original genre as well, in the sense of this is a period piece, kind of thing. We can't have too much. We can't have anything outside the period piece. That's
Yeah,
it.
you got to play to, unless you're playing against type cleverly. If you're breaking a rule with great skill, then you can make unbelievable art. But if you break a rule with terrible or no skill, then you're making a piece of crap. It's a terrible truth. But sometimes if you play with conventions, you can have amazing results. But sometimes you can just end up. It's like playing with fireworks. Yeah, when it works, it's great, but when it doesn't, there's your fingers. Don't do it unless you know what you're at, and even then, don't do it, kids. Don't play with fireworks. That was a bad analogy.
Well, this is like going back to the boys kind of thing. They changed quite a lot of the story. They've kept a lot of things as well, but they've changed and altered to tell their own story. And they did this in Game of Thrones, and they've done it in several movies and stuff like that. To some like, I'll point out Ready Player One in a little bit, kind of thing. But they've taken the boys and made it their own. So much so that fans of the source material are not, they're in the dark as much as anyone else, which is great. I love the comic books. I love the series, and it's because I'm in the dark about where they're going to go with things. I know more knowledge and stuff like that. So when little kind of Easter eggs come up, I'm like, yeah, cool kind of thing. But I'm not in any way going like, this means this, because I can't tell you if it's true or not, which is great because it refreshes the elements and stuff. But which is it causes problems as well when you decide to take on your own adaptation of the source materials and you don't do it masterfully or don't do it in the spirit of the book, like Ready Player One, which was more of an advertisement of pop culture, of current pop culture, gaming, and I guess general nerd kind of culture.
Yeah, you're gonna get controversial here, so I'm gonna go with you. By the way, Paul and I feel very similarly about Ready Player One. I read the book and I loved it. Featured one of my favorite bands in key ways, Rush. When I heard Rush aren't going to feature, I didn't go, oh no, that's terrible. That's key to it. I was like, that doesn't really matter. It's an adaptation. It should be fine. But as Paul's just pointed out, we both watched it and then we kind of commiserated together for a while, going, they missed the brilliance. They lost the heart and the soul and the core of the book and got lost in the fact that, hey, we have access to Steven Spielberg toys. Let's make sure we get at least one DeLorean dinosaur, whatever else we can in there. It's a good example of not doing it the right way, I think.
Yeah, like they've taken a plot there. They've taken several plot points and stuff like that and altered them considerably, which caused problems. As in, the idea of the book is that they are delving into the mind and likes of one person.
Yeah,
and this is where their current cultural things have all taken like sections from and kind of thing.
It's a very cool reimagining of the Hardy Boys, where the Hardy Boys just have different backgrounds. It is just like it's a treasure hunt. That's one of the key elements to it. The conceit of what Ready Player One is and societally what that means is used to great effect in the book. All of those things don't hit home anywhere near as hard in the movie because when writing, it was more of a, what would be cool now, rather than, and again, it was about serving the story. They should have stuck with serving the spine of the story, really giving it, if they want to give it an update, if you want to change your items and elements, that's fine, but don't make that the reason you're doing it. And it really showed. I know I'd love somebody in the comments who absolutely loves Ready Player One to just tell us that we missed the point. I really would.
I don't. I don't because I think I'll get into. Just actually to jump into the comments, because we got quite a lot. Bruce one actually. Speaking of Stephen King, I think the famous scene from Misery is different in the book. You are correct. They didn't in the book. They use an axe when they are, and she cuts off his leg. where in the movie she hits it with a sledgehammer. So there's that kind of big kind of thing. Also, Lisa, we won't be spoiling Dune in any kind of way. It's more talking about some elements to it that are when you hear them in a book or read them in a book to hearing them out loud. There's a little bit of a difference there and can cause problems. But you are right. The Southern Reach trilogy is one of those weird ones that I've also seen that just seems to burn through. I've heard of a couple of screenplays that have been completely thrown out the window and stuff like that because an Annihilation was where they came from. So I was just like, what were the other ones like? And then there's Lord of the Rings galore.
Well, there's a lot of comments. Thank you very much for all your comments. I'm seeing just there's something else. I want to cover it just before we kind of get to Dune because I'm seeing a lot of chat that's leading us. We better not bury the lead here, and we better get to Dune soon, Paul. Hate that rhymed. If I was to say of all the reasons that something doesn't make it from a book to a movie, there are good ones and there are bad ones. But the most common thing that gets changed from in sci-fi, I guess more than anything else, from books to movies is the endings. So I will say spoiler alert, if anybody hasn't seen or read I Am Legend, I think this is just fair warning time. How should I put this? Movies are audience tested. There you go, maybe that's the way to put it. We're all to blame, or at least some of us are to blame for why endings are changed. Because quite often filmmakers will try and be more faithful to maybe a grim ending of a book than you would think. But the final product may actually have a happy ending or a hero's ending or the hero's journey ending well or at least being, noble death. In the case of I Am Legend, you've got two alternate endings in the movie. You've got an alternate ending in the movie. But let's just put it this way. The title of I Am Legend, and big spoiler, that is for Will Smith's. If I'd gone in and saw that, I would have come out punching the air. That was brilliant. How did you really enjoy that at the end? As it turns out, Will Smith was actually, not just surviving. He was being a threatening menace to these other creatures that he didn't understand. But no, in the actual movie, the theatrical cut, he goes out with a hero's death, basically blowing himself up to save some supporting characters that he met along the way so they could go off and have a successful, happy life. I have no problem with either of those things. But I do have a problem with the fact that it's changed so often is because movies are audience tested. And I have a big, big worry about who the test audiences are, because you should ask somebody before they go in, would you go and see a movie about time travel or zombies or space or dinosaurs or whatever it might be before they become the test audience? Whatever one of your big kind of obvious points is, or one of your big settings are, you have to ask. Because if I'm somebody who's being brought into a test audience for period pieces and costume dramas, I'm not going to be the most objective guy in that room. Like, well, what do you think? Well, I think the excessive chat about whether or not the tea bags were right or not, and how the stiff upper lip downstairs people were being treated badly, it didn't land with me. Maybe add a bazooka. I'm obviously not going to be my answer, but just like, do you really want to change the ending of your movie based on a test audience? Sometimes it'll work well, sometimes it won't. But if it fundamentally changes the hero's journey, I have to question, did you ask the right audience?
Well, this is the thing also, because we did a video on test audiences and stuff, that studios do them rather than the movie creators kind of things. And yeah, they do want to capture a wider demographic kind of thing. So they do want to see, like, if there's 50 people in the room and 10 of them are sci-fi fans for a movie, then yeah, of course those 10 sci-fi fans are going to have like 100 billion things to talk about if it has the source material, because more than likely they've seen it, kind of thing. But it's the other 40 that they want to know about, because like they know that they've already got the attention of those 10. They've captured those 10. It's the other 40 kind of thing. So
So I'm just making a physical gesture. I see it's already been commented. I just saw Lisa's comment of when headphones are off when the spoilers end. So obviously hadn't seen I Am Legend. It's safe now. Safe. Hopefully saw the comments.
Yeah, but to your point of I Am Legend, which I will not continue on with the spoilers. Uh, with movie adaptation changes and stuff like that, it does come to the endings and stuff where they do change and stuff. The problem with that is, yeah, if the story arc is leading to a specific ending and you take a right turn, it makes audiences feel unsatisfied and stuff
Cheated.
like that. Yeah, like so that's a big kind of element to it as well. And yeah, like the elephant in the room is that it's producer and money men kind of excuse me, it's producer and money men elements to it that cause what you could certain aspects of changes to occur. It's creative versus the money men. That's a big problem kind of thing that goes on as well. Now, yeah, it's like this is such a wide topic as well.
Yeah, well, and we better get back. All I'm going to throw out there for anybody who's wondering where I stand on this, I'm pretty sure that the ending of Monty Python's Holy Grail would not have tested well with audiences. It would have confused the hell out of them and talk about sharp right turn, but it couldn't be more perfect for the movie than it actually is as a total work. So yeah, again, I'm all for changing. I'm the one that was the whole "shut up fanboy" episode where we were like, I'm practically giving out to Paul, going, I don't want to hear somebody say,
Yeah.
I never ever want to hear somebody say that movie was crap because the book was better. It's like that's not a reason that a movie was crap. You can prefer a book. Was the movie crap? Yes or no? That's the question. If you think it was crap, it should have nothing to do with the books. If you want to say the written material was better, but the movie was good, or I didn't like the movie for X, Y, or Z reasons. But people who say movies are terrible because the book was better, I'm like, wow, you're never going to live a fulfilled, happy life, are you? Because you can't connect those two things like that. They're two mediums. You can wish that they did things differently, but you can't just go, that was terrible because it wasn't what I expected when I read the book.
Yeah, I'll also go down this road with Patrick in the sense of kind of when you're watching a movie or a show that is based on source material and stuff like that, you need to like revel in the fact that you have prior knowledge. You are a precog within watching this world kind of thing. Enjoy that fact because you're going to have Easter eggs and stuff like that, or when a character comes in, you're going to be like, ooh. But when you're judge it on its own merits rather than on the merits of what something else does, kind of thing. Because like it's hard already to try change something that already is loved by hundreds and thousands of people to the big screen, kind of thing, and to have you judge it on an already unfair baseline. Because like several of the books that have been mentioned are ones that ones that I've read way back in the past. So I've got nostalgia now involved in the whole mixture of stuff, which is an entirely unfair advantage towards books and stuff like that, and also movies that have come before. Like the whole reason why we do not want reboots and stuff like that, and also their new word, by the way, people, the new word for reboots is now reimagination or reimaginings.
Oh, it's all reimaginings.
That's the new kind of thing. But yeah, like there's some books that do not in any way, like there's a story there that can be transferred to the big screen, and they have to cut out certain elements and stuff like that. So you need to judge it on that one. You need to judge it on what it is, not what has come in the past. Like yeah, the Blade Runner thing, which is we do Android's Dream of Electric Sheep. There's a clock. There's a clock in the book that if you change the code on it, it gives you different emotions and different feelings and stuff like that. There's no point in having that in the book in the movie.
Yeah.
At all. Like, and that's not even that's not a massive spoiler, people. That's literally the first chapter is all about this clock that you change, you put in numbers, and it makes you feel different things. there's element like We Remember It Wholesale, which is the
Total
book.
Recall. The
Total
other
Recall is
yes.
not. It's not an action book. It's not an action movie in a book form. It's more about questioning reality,
And
and trying to like.
if you want to talk about distance between source and target for a movie, Running Man, we brought it up before, and this brings us back to Mr. King. The Running Man, the written material is so different to the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that I'm glad they were able to take the simple concept, the simple premise of someone, a game of being hunted and surviving, and doing two such different things with it. And I'm fine that they used the same title. I'm really glad that they were as far apart as they were, because it means that they don't dirty each other. But my God, is there any connection past the title? Not really, in any decent sense of the word. But I'm okay with that. They're different mediums. They could have maybe not called it Running Man and given somebody a chance to do the Running Man movie. But let's face it, thanks to reimaginings, reboots, reawakenings, and retreatments, somebody still can do a Running Man and make it closer to the written material. It's all doable these days.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I don't think if I was to redo, redo Ready Player One, as we've talked before, it would be three movies.
Yeah.
And I know people will scream at me because The Hobbit is extended and stuff like that, but I can squeeze out three movies of one of that book quite easily and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I don't think like
It's because it's an investigative case. It's an intriguing mystery. It's a treasure hunt. It's a little bit of social commentary interweaved with interpersonal relationships. It's all sorts of things. It's not just look at how many colors we can get on screen. Hey gamer, do you recognize this part? Hey, somebody who's seen Back to the Future, do you like DeLoreans? Paul, I've got to get us back on topic before we run out of time, because this all came out of, and I'm going to throw it over to you because this is your favorite, or at least one of your favorites. So it means an awful lot, and it's one of the reasons that you wanted to talk about this. What was the initial concern that you thought they would not get into from doing the book to doing the movie?
So Dune is a high sci-fi kind of element to us, and I know a lot of people who didn't like Lord of the Rings because it's high fantasy, so it means it delves fully into like a world and stuff like that. Dune has a lot of institutes and social and cultural differences that are very far wide compared to some of the high sci-fi that people may be used to today, kind of thing. So like, this is my difficulty is that people are going to watch this movie and they're going to say a lot of weird words that are connected to institutes, and whereas the book is allowed to the book is like, it says the name of an institute and then explains what that institute does pretty like straight off the bat, because it's just like, you got to listen to this because this is actually quite important and we don't have time to really mess around with what this is. This is there's an element to the book which Pop Culture 33 also brings up as well, but which is not the politics, because the politics is very medieval in a sense. Dune is like Macbeth. You can take it out of the sci-fi genre and put it into something else, and it more than likely will be the same. Like, there's a movie with Macbeth is set in I think it's a lawyer's firm kind of thing. But it's verbatim still Macbeth. It's just that it's based around a lawyer firm rather than a kingdom, whereas Dune could do similar things.
And Dune is from my understanding of Frank Herbert's source material, it's epic. Like you say, high fantasy. It's epic. It's grand in scale in every way. So I hope that they chop it to pieces, and I hope they do a reverse of Ready Player One, They don't try and keep as many things in as they, as maybe some fans would like. I hope they stick to the spirit of the interesting and intriguing grandness of it all, like Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson managed to do. Sequentially telling Catch 22 worked. Change what they need. I think they're going to have been smart enough. I assume that people's names will not be said repeatedly because, let's face it, they've all got some pretty, other than yours, Paul. There's some fairly epic names in there too, and there's going to be a lot of them. So I think Denis Villeneuve is good enough to make a movie that will show and not tell. But as far as that kind of religious aspect of it all, because I haven't read the book, I've only ever seen the Lynch movie. What's the concern there that they won't capture the essence of what was being driven towards?
It's my problem isn't that there. My problem is that you're not like that. The audience aren't going to roll with the punches. That's the thing. My problem is that they're going to say an institute's name. There's going to be some tiny element of what they do or what they are, or some explanation of a cultural difference or political element to it and stuff like that. And the audience aren't going to roll with the punches in the sense of kind of they're going to tune out or just be like, I'm confused now, and kind of it's just like just roll with the punches because it does. It's going to make sense what all these kind of groups do and what they're for and all this kind of stuff. So you have to roll with the punches, and that's the most important. If the only thing you come out of this specifically to do with Dune is you got to roll with the punches when it comes out, or when it starts explaining certain things or doesn't explain certain things, just roll with it. Because like as pop culture theory is, the political religious element to it is going to be a difficult one in its own right because there's several thousand. It's an empire of a million worlds kind of thing once again, and it's the only way that this like system works is by this like neo futuristic medieval rural system or like so.
Well, the important thing is how that affects and drives the story in the source material. So what's transferring politics to screen, it's about what was the story of that political time, that political issue. Was it the vying for power? Was it corruption? Was it a mix of both? What was the what made it exciting, compelling, or interesting, or relevant to maybe another part of the story? So I hope they strike a balance that makes fans happy, but I really hope, just because of the size of this, I know Denis Villeneuve wanted to make this back to back with another Dune movie, which would have made a lot of financial sense, because making two movies at the same time, just for anybody who hasn't, trust me, it's a good idea if you've got confidence to make them together. Production costs, everything. You make two movies cheaper than making one, in the grand scheme of things, for what you get in return, assuming they're successful. And I see the question is, have they announced? They haven't announced if there's another one, as far as I know. There's supposed to be, like the plan is, but they're waiting to see. I think this could be Star Wars for the next generation if they are smart enough to take what is obviously epic source material and not faithfully retell it to the point of strangling itself. I hope they take what they need, stay true to whatever made Dune so popular for you, because trust me, anybody who thinks it's the details that make something for them, it usually isn't. It's the concepts and the ideas. It's what it makes you think about, not what it's just told you. So I hope they really do manage to do that.
I think they will, because David Lynch's Dune added something into it that fans didn't like, but for the other parts of it, it did get them. It did get elements of it did get these institutes true to audiences and stuff like that were not all fans or not all readers of the book and stuff like that. It's just that some of it was lost because they had to add in this other element, and I don't understand why they needed to add in this other element. I think it was a physical representation of a thing, um, rather than just going with what the book is about, kind of thing. And it's, I'll tell you now, people, Dune, the first one, is going to be like, it's going to be a cakewalk compared
compared
to
to
the
what.
rest of the series.
But
Like, I'm gonna tell you now, it is a cakewalk compared to the rest of the series, and like, so roll with the punches, because if there is another movie coming, like, I'm hoping that it's going to be like John Wick, that it just builds on the foundation in which they put you on, kind of thing. And if there's elements of this movie that you didn't get, and or institutes that you didn't understand fully, read about them after you watch the movie and stuff. Don't read before, because I'm going in with someone who hasn't read the book, and I want to see and they haven't watched the David Lynch movie, and I want to see what they say about the institutes and the religions. I'm not saying that it's difficult in any way. Am I saying that, like, I got really annoyed when someone told me that I wasn't going to understand Interstellar. Like, you are going to understand them. It's the fact is that there might be subtleties and stuff like that might be lost within a screen adaptation of what a book can do, kind of thing. So
of
roll with
course,
the punches.
of course, and I think roll with the punches is a great. But that message is to two groups though. It's people who haven't seen it. Open yourself up to the idea that they might be trying to pour some epic juice down your neck. And the more you take it in, the more fun you'll have. Don't get put off. But the other side of that ball, and I'll do the other side of the coin. Everybody who has read the book or books or the whole series, roll with the punches too. Whatever you do, do not be the person that goes, ugh, but the most important thing they could have had was blah, because now you're going to miss out on what. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Did it do a good job? Judge the movie first, then talk about what you wished or how you would have done it differently, because that's all fun too, and that's all great. But for people especially in the internet age, that can kill things, and super fans can kill things very, very quickly by crapping all over it for no good reason, just to try and look like they're informed. Information doesn't make you smart; it's how you use it that does. If I come out of doing half as happy as I think I'm going to, because I don't think with the people involved, all of the people in front and behind the camera, if I come out having successfully watched an epic story be well told, I'll be happy. But if I come out with any of what you've kind of hinted at that I'm really intrigued by, that extra layer of galactic epicness and subterfuge and maybe religious tension and political backstabbing, if I come out with a real sense of all that, then I'll be the first one banging on doors going, please make at least 3 more of these. Just
Yeah.
do it. Take my money now. I'll give you a deposit for the next 4 movies. So they've got a chance. They've got a chance to win. They've got a chance to lose. But I think it's incumbent on all of us to actually give it a chance first. Roll with the punches.
Yeah, like that's I can't see it. Like, the problem also with fans of source materials, also they tend to be the most passionate and loudest. So people who are just like, I really like the movies, I haven't read this other source material and stuff like that. It has made me want to, but I still want to continue on with the movie series. You got to be just as loud if those fanboys are just like, no. The other thing I noticed, and I've been thinking about it here because I know we're coming up to time.
Yeah.
Is that if you read a book, if you read a series or anything, and you ask someone what is the most important story element of that book, I will tell you now that a lot of people will say different things,
Yeah.
or take different things from the book. But and that's the purpose of literature, of the source material, that's, or like, not just the source material, but it's what books can do, whereas a movie, it's not just taking, like, you still get people's taking different ideas and stuff like that from a movie, but there is elements that everybody can agree on a lot easier than within a book series or within a comic book series and stuff, because you're adding your own imagination, your own ideas, your own thought processes, everything into a book because you're reading it. You're whereas you're visualizing it in your own head and stuff like that. Whereas a what is it? So a a book or a comic book is essentially looking at a world from bird's eye view, whereas a movie or TV is looking at a world through a microscope. That's probably one of the best like things I can take from it.
Interesting way to put it. Well, and
You
look,
know?
we have gone over time, but we won't go too far over time. Paul, I think the way I would put it to everybody is the same thing I always say. These are all art forms, and what is that really? It's something that makes you think or makes you feel. The good stuff makes you do both. The great stuff brings you on a journey that helps you understand your feelings or experience more of them, and helps you shape your thinking or change it. So thinking and feeling, we're getting that from books. We're getting that from movies. You get that from stage play. Go to a good stand-up comedian. If they're good, you'll have had a think, not just a laugh. You'll have had a feeling, not just a giggle. All art, be it carved in stone or hung on a wall, will do that to you. That's why we do this channel. The other reason we do this channel, though, Paul, and watch me segue into corporate land. The other reason we do this channel is so that we can get some viewers now and again. If you have not, do it right now. Hit the little thumb. There's a little thumb that says like. If you're one of the few people that are watching right now and haven't hit subscribe, we'd love you to do that too. Maybe even hit a little notification, even if you are a subscriber, so you get caught up anytime we drop random videos. I would love to give you all one massive hug and come to the cinema with Paul, and I'd love to fill the cinema with everybody watching this video right now and in the future, so we can all see how he reacts to Dune, because I'm going to go with him. You've already promised me, Paul, that you'll probably see it with somebody else first, but then we're going to get to go, so I get to have the Paul Dune experience. I'm looking forward to it so much.
Well, the other thing is that you'll get the other side of the thing, which is like my partner will get to see the raw kind of element to it, but you're going to get to see the sitting like at the edge of his seat with his hand like on his chin, kind of calculating and reading into everything and stuff like that, which is another element to it.
Oh, pensive Paul, yeah, or analytical Paul. Look, I'm grateful for everybody who's joined us. Thank you all for wonderful chat, loads and loads of comments. You all know how awesome you are. I'll quickly do the shout outs to Pop Culture 33. Already got a shout out. Our links are in videos. Hopefully it's in the description of this one. If it's not, Paul, will you update it this week?
It is already there, yeah.
Brilliant. Same thing for It Takes Two, podcast by some of our friends who are awesome at talking about twin movies. A video that I hope you've got the idea from, because it was one of my favorite videos of ours when we did a video about twin movies. Movies that are similar, except they do it in a much cooler way. Unexpectedly similar themed movies. It's great. Check out their podcast. And also, Paul has got a little old thing going on the other side of the internet, just over there. That's where the other side of the internet is. That is D&D with a group called Homebrew Quest. Paul, we're running out of time, so Homebrew's got plenty of shout-outs. They get a shout-out every week. That's all you're getting this time round. Would you like to say good night and good luck to the people?
Well, so we understand that we didn't go through every single detail of every book adaptation and everything like that. If you do want us to go through a certain specific series of books and movie adaptations and kind of tell you why these plots may have not made it, let us know in the socials, which you can see that down below, and everything like that. For people who are watching this on demand, don't forget that we are live Thursday 8 p.m. Which is Irish time. So join us there. Like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and share us out.
All right.
Thank you very much for watching. I've been Paul.
I've been Patrick.
And we've been Hear Us Out.
And you've all been great. We'll see you next week.
Thanks.